Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Deuteronomy chapter 30 today. We are in the 30s. We've only got 34 chapters in this book, so we're getting close to the end. Free PDF that you're going to see up on the screen, but you can also download it on the tobelikechrist.com website for free, and there's a link in the description. I think that's all the announcements I have today. Nothing much new, so let's cover our first page. Speaking of things that haven't changed very much. First of all, when did the events of Deuteronomy chapter 30 happen? Well, this would be approximately 1450 BC, about 1450 years before Jesus is born in Bethlehem. And moving into our character section, we have the Israelites, also known as the Hebrews. They were the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God had promised to give them a special land, a promised land as their home. And that is where their leader, who's our second main character, Moses, is taking them. Moses was originally from Egypt, you may remember, but he led God's people out of Egypt into the wilderness. Now he's led them to the borders of this promised land, and he's encouraging them before they go in and make this land their home. So that takes us to our where section. Specifically, where is Moses talking to or encouraging the Israelites? They haven't entered into the promised land yet. They're on the border. They're in Moab. They have to cross the Jordan River if they're going to get into the Canaan land. So they're in Moab, probably near Mount Pisgah. There are a total of 20 verses in chapter 30, and I've got a pretty short summary outline section for you today. And the reason for that is because Deuteronomy is somewhat of a repetitive book. Moses is always reminding and re-reminding the people, number one, that they need to follow God and keep covenant with Him, and number two, do not go chasing after false gods and abandon the law of God, otherwise bad things are going to happen. And we kind of see that same pattern in chapter 30. So I don't have a desk yet here at this new apartment that I'm at, so I'm holding my laptop, so that's what I'm looking at. The first section, repentance and restoration, verses 1 through 10. So if, in the future, the Israelites rebelled against God and were punished with the curses that have already been described in Deuteronomy chapter 27 through 29, God would still be willing to forgive them if they repented with all their heart and with all their soul. If God had expelled them from the promised land, which was one of the curses that he mentioned could potentially happen, if he had done that, he would return them to the land. And if their repentance was genuine, God promised that he would restore their prosperity, he would take the curses off of them, and he would put those curses on their enemies, and he would cause their nation to flourish. God would circumcise the Israelites' hearts. And if you don't know the meaning of that, we've discussed it already earlier in the book of Genesis and Deuteronomy and the significance of that. So maybe go back and watch the earlier verses because we don't have time to explain it all here. But God would circumcise their hearts. Circumcision was a sign of God's covenant with his people. And when God did that, they would love him with all of their hearts and their souls, and they would be restored. And then our second section, verses 11 through 20, a choice between life and death, blessing and curse. Moses reminded the Israelites that God's instructions weren't something that was unachievable for them. While they may never achieve perfection, and certainly we know that they wouldn't, God would be pleased with them if they gave their heart and their soul to him. Moses presented a choice to the people, a choice between life with God and death without God. And it was up to them whether their nation was going to receive a blessing or a curse. And at the end of the chapter, Moses urges them to choose the blessing, to choose life, to choose God. The application today is pretty simple. Although there was a lot that took place between the life of Moses and the life of Jesus, and there's a lot of details about God's law and things like that need to be understood, Jesus presents essentially the same choice to the modern world, right? The basic choice isn't difficult to understand. It's not unachievable with Jesus' help. We can choose either life by following God, or we can choose death by choosing to ignore him.